And welcome to No Assembly Required Podcast, a weekly podcast where we talk about nothing. And we entertain you in the process. And now your trio of hosts for the evening, starting with Audrey, Hollywood Ember, and Romina with the good hair, and of course your dark lord of the interwebs, here to surprise, delight, and conquer you all, Roberto Blake. Welcome to the No Assembly Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please like and subscribe. How's that?
Incredible as always.
I feel like you're just buttering me up.
You never cease to amaze me.
I said it was great. I was muted.
Mm-hmm. Typical story.
You know, I have an actually genuine problem accepting the validity of compliments. Well, actually, you do know that because both of you have known me for a while.
I do too.
I don't.
Why are you thinking about it, Roberto?
I don't know. I've just been thinking about a lot of stuff lately.
Yeah, man, you're like you're in the process of self-actualizing.
What makes you say that?
I don't know. I'm just saying it. Because why not? Sounds cool, doesn't it? I want to get to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in the process of self-actualizing. You know, like if I go to a networking party and they're like, oh, what are you working on? I'll be like, oh, I'm in the process of self-actualizing.
But would somebody who's in the process of
I think I'd be scared if someone said that.
Would someone who's in the process of self-actualizing say, I'm in the process of self-actualizing right now?
Audrey, what do you think it means? What's your interpretation?
Growing as a human? Isn't everyone growing as a human?
No.
But you're growing, becoming more yourself.
I would say
your full potential.
Right, exactly. I would say that it's growing with intention.
Yeah, but wouldn't everyone hopefully be doing that? Like, what if no one's gonna say I'm not self-actualizing? Isn't that just depressing?
I think that some people aren't focusing on that. Like, for example, I'm currently not self-actualizing because I would like to be stronger physically, but it's not something that I can dedicate myself to right now.
Oh,
right. So it's kind of like
you gotta do 100 push-ups a day.
But I'm currently in the process of fulfilling the hierarchy of needs first. Like I'm going through different steps. So I think that I'm not.
But isn't that it's still part of the process though of getting?
Well, yeah, it's part of the process. But to say that you're only working on self-actualization at any given time means that you've reached the peak.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, wouldn't only monks be able to say that they're only doing that?
No.
Wow.
No, because the first three levels, you could argue, the first three levels of Maslow's hierarchy of human needs mostly would come down to attaining all of your worldly desires for the most part, and then I think the next two would be largely based in the idea of feeling accomplished in terms of feeling like you've set and achieved goals for yourself that you set out to do, and it's and now you're at a point to where every remaining challenge is merely a formality, so all that would be left to you would be seeking enlightenment. So essentially it's when you've reached a point to where there's nothing you could need that would exist outside of your ability or capacity to attain fairly easily or without your maximum effort being required or near maximum effort being, or even a considerable effort on your part. So the only thing left to you now is to just continue to seek challenges or seek enlightenment. That's why I've made the argument that I'm going to probably be very bored at 50.
Wow. I think there's always something else beyond that, right?
Yeah, but it's just at that point you're just playing the game to play the game at that point. You've literally
You don't think that there's an expansion? You don't think that you'll keep?
the expansion is usually referred to as death.
Ah, man. I mean, there's gonna be more afterwards. You're gonna want more after. So it's in
That's
your
kind
human
of the
nature.
point. No, I mean that's kind of the point is that if you've actually achieved most of the actual things within my Maslow's hierarchy and you've done it in some kind of like healthy way.
Yeah, I know, but the point of
really...
self-actualization is that it's ongoing. I mean, even if you are enlightened, you have to maintain that enlightenment. It's not something that just ends
it's
when
literally
you
you're
get to that
just
level
doing
of the game, you know?
Yeah, but at that point you're literally just doing it. You're playing the game just to play the game. Like you've already literally beaten the game. You've collected most of the items in the game. You're just going for 100% completion for no real reason at that point.
But isn't that still part of the game?
It
You know,
is,
like I feel like that would be a hard chapter, actually.
Yeah. Anyone who's ever reached max level cap in an MMORPG knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like if you've ever reached or if you've ever beaten a game and then gone back and got all the items and did 100% completion of the game, you realize, you know, you know what I'm talking about. There's not really any challenge in doing it anymore at this point. It's just going through the motions.
I see what you're saying. It's not so much as being the boredom. The reason that you said that is because the challenge is gone.
Yeah, it's like the reason that Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson are doing what they're doing is because they reached max level cap in life a long time ago. And the thing is, everyone whines about what they do with their money and how they do it, but they're literally at this point, right?
They've defeated the boss.
Like people who are fighting for their survival. I understand their frustration, but the thing is, they can't imagine everything that goes beyond fighting for your. I know this because I used to be poor. So like once you no longer have to fight for survival, you have a whole new host of problems, usually associated with your self-esteem, your mental health, and your trauma. But if you should actually reconcile that to some meaningful, healthy place and then have moved beyond surviving to thriving in life, then that presents another whole host of problems because you realize there are more than material problems and more than survivalism, and there's more to life than being like hungry or cold or sick or worrying about whether you're going to live or die. And you realize that you have to learn how to live with being someone you like and respect, and that's actually very difficult to do while being a productive human being. It's very difficult. And then if you should even achieve that and then achieve having the respect of others, have fulfilling relationships, and all of those things, you then have to reconcile with the fact that you might have the power to achieve your ambitions and your wildest dreams, only to find out that you set the bar too low and that you still have 30, 40, or even 50 years of life to keep on living with the understanding that everything you deigned to imagine doing, you either achieved it or it no longer would present any real difficulty. That's actually, if you imagine what that's like, because again, some people just say, oh, I would be satisfied with being okay or having this, or I mean, it relates to our topic of the evening, like in a real way, at least for me, because once you realize what you want versus you just setting arbitrary goalposts or milestones based on either what the top has or what someone you admire has, whatever, once you realize what you can be comfortable with, and then you're comfortable, and then you still keep going and going, and you challenge yourself, like you get to a point where you realize, oh, what I used to think is hard is no longer difficult because I'm stronger or smarter or more well equipped now. Like, do you remember like tasks you thought were sheer insurmountable as a child, things you thought were impossible as a child, that you've now seen and achieve as an adult every day with relatively no difficulty? I mean, you understand that, oh, well, that's boring. That was a challenge when I was a child. It's mundane now. Or if something you thought about in high school, okay, now that you've like moved beyond that, it's not even a second thought.
Like all those things you put all of your energy and anxiety into, all those things you thought were so important are now trivial by comparison as the years march on and on. And if you're getting better at things, you're getting smarter at things, you're getting stronger at things, then every year that goes by, life offers less and less of a challenge to meet your capabilities, and there's less barriers to any ambition that you might have, and you realize that the thing that you now fear the most is living decade upon decades of merely being bored and unsatisfied.
What about
a little scary?
What about this comment from KDX?
No pop. You're going through the motions, and there's no pop. Nope. There's no satisfaction. There's no gratification whatsoever.
Hold up. Look at this comment from KDX. Last stage of enlightenment is to then decide to enlighten others, or to keep the knowledge for yourself. I mean, if you decide to enlighten other, well, what? I don't think that's boring. I would love it if I was enlightened and all I needed to do day in and day out was enlighten others.
I literally have joked with my friends about how when I get like to the age of retirement, I would like to become a professor so I can just teach people about like film and social media related things. That sounds fun to me.
It's gratifying enough as someone who's been doing it for a while. I can tell you that the routine of it can start to get a little dry, especially when people keep having the same problem repetitively. You will literally find yourself repeating the same conversations.
It becomes mundane.
There's a point where you find yourself repeating the same conversations every year.
I think that part of the job of staying enlightened though is to prevent that from happening, right? Is to keep finding something else.
There's always new things. Like it's impossible to know or to get good at everything.
Get to the new thing, and then it's not any more challenging than the thing that came before it.
All right. Speaking of things that are challenging, why is it that being a YouTuber is challenging?
Well, part of it.
I mean, y'all like my segue?
No, it's the perfect segue because Romina is right. Because like this is literally the problem. I'll tell you right now exactly how to be a successful YouTuber.
Wow,
if you managed to get to 10,000 subscribers and you did it without going viral, and you honestly don't believe you were lucky, and you have some data in your YouTube channel that can tell you, like in a repeatable pattern, that similar things produced, like whatever five videos produced the most subscribers for you is what would continue to grow subscribers for you, as long as there's some commonality between those things. And then also you could look at whatever got you the most views, if that's a goal. If you got to 10,000 subscribers, you've already cleared the watch time requirements. You've already cleared all of the unlock requirements. If you haven't gotten to 1,000 and monetized, I already made a video on how to get 4,000 hours of watch time. I made a video on exactly how to do that. And I mean, literally a mathematical formula for 4,000 hours of watch time. And I did another video that gives you the mathematical formula for getting 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you achieve those two things, then there's pretty much a time rinse and repeat to 10,000. Once you get to 10,000, this is literally the thing that I told even people who are YouTube gamers, Bijou Mike, Sam from Skip the Tutorial. This works over and over again in almost any genre of YouTube, is once you know which 5 to 10 videos each produced the most subscribers for you, and if there's any singular video that produced 500 to 1,000 subscribers of your 10,000 subscribers, all you have to do is understand who those people are and why they subscribed, and make content for them. And the thing is, to some extent, you can literally just find of the 5 videos that did the best, you find for each of those videos another 5 ways to remake each of those 5 videos that did the most for you. So that's 25 videos repeating the 5 videos that got you to at least 10,000 subscribers. 25 more videos that do what those 5 videos did will take you all the way to over 100,000 subscribers. It's possible that if one of them ever goes big, it would carry you to closer to 500,000 subscribers. Once you're there, you have a larger variety and inventory of videos and a better understanding of audience behavior. And at that point, you've probably experimented a little more than that too and tried some things for fun, which means you now have a cycle of videos that grew you, that weren't part of those initial videos that grew you, that gives you another understanding. And guess what? You have another farm to go back to of rehashing your next 25 big hits. And then by the time you've done that, you've created a pattern to where you at that point probably understand exactly what you need to do to grow on YouTube. But you'll find it was what largely it will be repetitive as hell, which is why the only people who enjoy it are the only people who only are gratified by the results and the outcomes, and they don't care and they're indifferent to the process. People who are indifferent to the process to achieve their goals and are pursuing things for the sake of a goal, those people can enjoy that process and not have a mental breakdown. Every other YouTuber who goes back to the well until they get to 1 million subscribers, you see what happens to them. They have a mental breakdown. Or am I wrong about that?
So part of being a YouTuber is just, if you care, to have multiple mental breakdowns.
It's accepting the fact that you will have a mental breakdown at some point in your career.
Well, I mean, being
It's
successful in life
it will
largely,
happen.
being successful in life is largely a matter of an inevitable path to a mental breakdown, by the way.
True.
Roberto, what are you drinking there?
Water.
Oh, well, that's boring.
I told you, I'm boring as hell.
I'll drink some water too.
Oh, well, am I the only one who got tea? I'm drinking a great tea. It's an herbal tea and it's tropical. If anybody cares.
How does that happen?
Because I'm magical. So the chat is popping off over here. They're actually talking about parents and child.
Yeah.
So we're talking about YouTube. KDX says the whole YouTube thing falls under the job category and has an expiration date for being exciting.
To a point. And it depends on what you're doing.
On what you're doing, yeah. Exactly.
I mean, you
Your
can say that
intention.
literally about anything. You
Retention.
can say that about any
But that's
hobby, about any
But
job.
that's my point. YouTube is not special in terms of, like, YouTube is not that special. I mean, it is from a technological standpoint, it is from a creative outlet standpoint, but think about it. How is YouTube all of that special when you consider that the same things that would make you theoretically successful in YouTube would make you successful in any business that you would start, because it's still a matter of supply and demand at the end of the day.
Yeah. I feel like that's something I've realized more like recently over the past year or so, maybe. Because I think when I was younger, I was like, being a YouTuber, I'll never work. It will be great. It won't feel like work. It will be fun all the time. And I kind of have now realized that that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
being a
that-
basketball player, being a writer, being a gymnast, you know, if you do it for a living, it's like, yes,
Right, the
you have to
logistics
save-
behind there's a misconception that it's all fun, all creative all
Yeah.
the time, and what is creative about it is coming up with creative ways to not go crazy.
Yeah.
You love your family. You don't like them every minute of every day. You love your family. You don't like them every minute of every day. So
If
why
that
would
ain't
you?
the truth.
So, you love your career. Why aren't you happy all the time? You have
Yeah.
success. Why aren't you happy all the time? Well, you have people in your life that you love. Do you like them all the time, or are you mad at them, or frustrated, or upset, or disappointed from time to time? So if that's true with living, breathing human beings, why would you be expected to go through a process or a career, or again, even having your material desires? Why would that elicit continuous happiness? Why would it do that?
Yeah.
Why would it allow for that?
I think YouTube and like just influencers in general is even worse with that, because the whole part of the job is making it look like it's a lot of fun all the time, for the most part. So
And that's why I keep saying people are getting lied to. I mean, and I don't think it's being done maliciously, by the way. I don't think
it's just that's how it is.
I think it's because there's a pressure from the culture, because of like the conversations. There are real conversations to be had about privilege, but I think it's ridiculous to keep holding up and insisting that people who have an audience or have YouTube success or have subscribers or fame or money and that stuff, that they need to keep, there's a culture that keeps insisting upon forcing false humility down these people's throats, and then when they crap out honey lies, when they crap out honey turds that the people who look up to them decide to consume on a regular basis, only to find out that they have no nutritional value and that it ultimately rots their mind, people are surprised.
I want to highlight one of the comments in the chat from Andy. It depends on where you get your joy from. Is it from seeing your view and sub counts go up? Is it from pushing yourself creatively? Is it from showcasing someone else?
Anything that you think you derive that joy from, though, regardless of which of those ones you choose, if done over and over and over again, like there is nothing that done on a long enough timeline repetitively enough continues to elicit the same amount of joy, because we're not designed psychologically to accommodate that. It's a thing called the hedonic treadmill. The amount of what has to be done or achieved in order to elicit a dopamine reaction in you keeps moving up and up and up, and requiring more and more and more and more. So there's no amount of that ever, like there's a point where that is unsustainable. There is a point where that is unsustainable. And so that's what I'm getting at. I would say the hardest part of being a YouTuber is the fact that it's difficult to get people to realize that it's unsustainable. And then number two, figuring out what to do with that knowledge if you do choose to accept it. How you continue to pursue it, or how you continue to persist, or whether you continue to persist with the knowledge that eventually that this will become unsustainable. And by unsustainable, that could be a lot of things. It could be, if you're deriving your satisfaction from growth, there is a point where you level off and you do not grow at the same rate or in the same way. There is a point where if what you're satisfied with is the income that it generates, well, that's not guaranteed either, and that's not guaranteed to be sustainable either. It's not forever. Or there is the fact that physically it can be unsustainable to keep pace with what you did in your prime and your peak. Casey being an example. Casey was the king of quality and quantity daily videos, like at a highest level. And he says he thought that there was no such thing as burnout for a long time, but he realized, oh no, it just turns out that I have a tremendous amount of stamina. And when it did finally catch up with me, I crashed hard. And so he kind of recanted on the burnout conversation, because he realized, it's like, it just like eventually it caught me too. And so, that's a real thing. There are people, it's rare to have a 10-year career in YouTube. Almost no one has done it and remained relevant. It's very rare to do. And then even those who do, again, you see people with 10 million subscribers not be able to grow any more further beyond that. So again, even the highest level, the highest echelon is no longer viable or sustainable. There's not necessarily a forward path to growth. There is a ceiling. There is a limit. So
yeah, I mean, even our greatest, like the OGs on YouTube, had to adapt and change, and those who didn't have fallen through the cracks. I think that Justine is a really prime example of doing it well, because
probably one of the best examples.
Her audience has changed so much during the last over a decade, because I mean, she has been I guess she's an example of someone who has had that decade-long career on YouTube, but has not stayed relevant.
It'll be 5 years
from
now.
Not stayed relevant throughout. Has not stayed relevant throughout. She's definitely had her dips and her peaks through that. Or
rather, I would say not maintain the same relevancy, because she became hyper relevant in a different sector, because now
because she shifted the kind of content that she was posting. Well, she didn't shift, she specialized
exactly
in the kind of content that she was posting,
and she moved away from variety, which she was very reluctant to do, which most people are reluctant to do. But now she's found hyper relevance in specialization, because now she is literally the leading female creator in tech, and is one of the leading voices in tech of multiple generations.
Yeah, precisely. Not only that, but she's also fostered her relationships with her brands, which is probably the most important thing that has contributed towards the sustainability of the longevity of her career.
Yes.
More so than the audience, right?
Yeah. The financial longevity of her career is healthy, even if someone wants to feel like her growth is not. I would say that they're not understanding that she outgrows her churn in the sense that she still goes net positive, but she's churning a different audience that she's less relevant to in favor of a new audience that she's becoming more and more relevant to at a good replacement rate. It's just not something that if someone is into the concept of virality as validation or virality as relevance, then you would look at it sideways. But Justine has a tremendous career ahead of her, and she has a tremendous career behind her and is crushing it. But if someone then wants to play the comparison game and look at the TikTok kids, then it won't feel that way. But the thing is, but what's the shelf life of that? Like they're going to have the shelf life, possibly many of them, most of them, of a butterfly, because the same thing was true of Vine, and even the Viners now, once the kings and queens of YouTube, conquerors all, who literally almost all the Viners came and subverted the mainstream OG established YouTube creators and literally leapt over them in terms of growth and relevancy and numbers in an unprecedented way. And now even the Viners now are practically senior citizens on this platform.
It's interesting because even if like her, just for the sake of, imagine her entire YouTube channel just disappeared tomorrow. She would still be able to, take her experience and stuff and build another company or work for someone else, or, there's so many options.
She would be offered chief marketing officer like by 50 companies before breakfast.
Yeah, exactly. So
I don't know what role they would give her, but I'm certain she would literally get an offer from YouTube like immediately. And I'm sure Apple and Microsoft would get into a bidding war. I'm not even playing.
Yeah. Yep, because you can't argue with literal experience of working with the platforms and stuff. A lot of those people never have really done it.
You don't have to even be a big YouTuber for that. Look at Andrew Can, formerly of TubeBuddy.
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce is one of the biggest companies and brands in the world, and now he's heading up their team and he's taking over their YouTube strategy team. And the thing is, he's a YouTuber. He doesn't have 10,000 subscribers on his channel, but he worked behind the scenes in the background and got TubeBuddy to 500,000 with his strategies. And now that moved him from going in a niche market that catered to creators to having one of the, but at a technology company, to having one of the largest technology and companies in the world tap him for their social media strategy team. So think about that. That's insanity. You don't even have to be a big YouTuber to be able to be capable of longevity outside the platform. The problem is the way that people narrow what they think their YouTube career is going to be. They shut off all possibility except for a very, in my mind, childish and immature fantasy of what a career looks like.
That's I just told Romina before you were in here, Roberto, that I got my first directing gig through YouTube, someone who found me through there who wants me to make something for them. And that's one of my pillars that I want in the future, is to be able to do that as well. So I don't know. I'm trying to think ahead.
Yeah.
So YouTube's not the only thing. I can make videos about directing stuff as well.
The closest thing that, and it encouraged me because I like making content, but I've always said this for me, because I'm 37 now, which means I lived more of my life in a world where YouTube didn't exist than have lived in a world where it did. Which is probably the difference between me and most of the people who are on this platform or want to be YouTubers, is I lived more of my life in a world where YouTube didn't exist or where I wasn't creating content than did. like on YouTube, at least creating content on YouTube. So my perspective and my relationship with it is then very different. There's like the closest you could look at in my mind to what if you want to like have a crystal ball and look into my future, you could probably look at Chase Jarvis. You could look at Chris Do. You could look at Gary Vee. You could look at Terry White, right? So these are people whose skill sets and in creativity, business, and technology go beyond their presence on social media, even though that may be where the majority of people know them. You could make an argument that their impact outside of that is far bigger, which is where what I aspire to is I want to build an education business that is respected in the way that what Chase has done with Creative Live. I want to be respected as in the world of the creator economy as a thought leader and as a mentor in the way that Gary Vee is respected in the social media marketing community. I want to be respected as a creative professional in technology in the way that Terry White, Adobe evangelist and world famous photographer. I want to be a world class photographer more than a world famous photographer. I want to be a world class photographer. But I'd also like to be a leader in creative education by example of the art that I make and my technical ability to make it in the way that he is. And then if you look at Chris Do and how he is a thought leader and an inspiration to every introvert that's ever existed, and then also what he's done in building a creative thought leadership business, I want that. I've always wanted that. So, you know, that's that. Like, if you really think about it, these are entrepreneurs and creative pros that exist on social media and exist on YouTube. They are entrepreneurs on YouTube. They are not YouTube entrepreneurs. Mr. Beast is a YouTube entrepreneur. I want to be an entrepreneur who is on YouTube. And I've always wanted, and that's how I've always been.
Yeah. I think Victoria brought a good point as well. They mentioned a virtual resume. So YouTube is like a virtual resume. I mean, Audrey is an example of that with her directorial debut, as well as with Roberto too, with his like speaking engagements too. I think as well. I think just having that up there is a testament to what you're able to do. And I've definitely had a lot of really great opportunities because of YouTube as well, both with like hosting events and then also building my own digital media company. So I think there is something to say for even if you don't reach the numbers, having that kind of that virtual resume does help with validation for other areas of what it is that you're doing, right?
1,000%. Can I push back on what KDX is saying in the
yeah,
comments? Can you put that up?
I was gonna do that next as well.
So, like, when you want to read that out loud?
Yeah, Audrey's gonna read it out loud.
Can you imagine some of these YouTubers showing up to an office every day? They wouldn't last a week under the constraints of normal working conditions.
So I'm gonna call bullshit
and
on that.
She says that she's not an actor.
I'm gonna call bullshit on that. I'm gonna call bullshit on that. Here's my pushback. Every one of these normal office workers every one of these normal office workers would not be able to do what a YouTuber does and get the same results as them. And if they did, then they should actually do it.
Ooh.
Like, I think showing up to
anybody who does YouTube like full time, anyone who does YouTube full time can go to an office. They'll be miserable, but they can go to an office,
right?
And they can.
But they're going to be miserable
because
their potential is being thwarted.
Yes, exactly. But they can go to that. I guarantee you that in terms of a normal office job, not a high level middle management job, any job that's not management, any YouTuber who's a full time YouTuber can go to that job and do it just as well as anyone else that's been trained,
if not better, because they're able to wear multiple hats.
I guarantee you, put money on it. But nobody that you pull out of that same office can sit there and have a YouTuber stand over them and tell them, do what I did, and could stand over them and have them make a video and it not be trash, or upload a video and not screw up the settings, or edit a video. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Or just to get 5 people to watch their video.
Yeah, because if they could do it, they would be making YouTube videos. I'm gonna say it. I know it sounds privileged. It sounds pretentious. Being a full-time YouTuber is harder than a 9-to-5 job. Yes, I effing said it. Yes, I effing said it. Being an entrepreneur is harder than a 9-to-5 job. Yes, I said it. And I don't care what anybody has to say. It is absolutely true. Why is it true? 99% of humans on Earth do not have the ability to use video editing software in a proficient way. That is not an opinion. That is a fact. They do not have that capability. 99% of humans are not good public speakers. That is an effing fact. Okay? 99% of humans, I cannot put a $3,000 camera in their hand and get a less than trash result. The technology is really good. It's not that good to deal with somebody who has to do it right away and not read the instruction manual and just do it. No, it can't. It cannot accommodate that. There is a reason that people go to schools to learn how to use cameras and camera gear. And then even if they don't, there's a reason that people spend 1,000 hours watching YouTube videos just to learn lighting and to learn photography. There's almost nobody that works a 9-to-5 job that can tell me what the rule of thirds is, or can tell me the difference between shooting in 24 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and 60 frames per second, and what it does. They don't know what an aperture is. They don't want to know what shutter speed is. They don't know what ISO is. So they're going to make YouTube videos? Really? And it's not going to look like trash? Like,
really?
There's none of
Yeah,
that.
I think he was talking more about like adapting to just working in an office versus freelance.
The people who became YouTubers already dealt with those limitations day in and day out, usually for years while being YouTubers. Almost every one of the OG YouTubers waited 5 years. Philly D still was busting tables. Sean Canal was working at Red Robin. Justine was a freelancer still for 5 years. People can do it, and they do it. Most people still do it. There are a lot of YouTubers right now that are borderline on where they could be full-time, and they still do work at an office, at least before the pandemic. And so they can, and they do, and it's a thing. But
I think that they would still be able to operate even if their potential is being thwarted. They would just be miserable, which was Roberto's exact word.
But I would argue that most people working in those jobs, most people are not working jobs of fulfillment or purpose. Most people, frankly, are miserable at their job. Why do you think everyone wants to theoretically do this?
And the truth is that there are a lot of YouTubers who are in the 6 figures of the subscribers and still have either a part-time or a full-time job.
How many do you see all these lawyers leaving their law practices to become YouTubers? I'm not joking. You've seen lawyers and tax attorneys and real estate agents, all of them leaving traditional professional work to take their expertise and then to build a personal brand around their knowledge and their expertise, and to be able to do it and to do it on their terms rather than having to adhere to a lot of regulations and this, that, the next, and the third. And there's so many things. So again, even people with traditional quote unquote boomer jobs and careers are saying screw it, and they're becoming social media content creators. Great example would be Emily D. Baker, former prosecutor, everyone's favorite cursey words lawyer. You know, like you have her, you have Devin from Legal Eagle. You have people leaving prominent degrees.
I just want to like, how do these people come up with these names? Like the best I could do was RedRomina.
I want to go off topic, but why the red?
I think you originally wanted to call yourself Red Shirt Romina as a pun, as an inside joke for Trekkies.
So red is because, well, I used to be able to make
Trek related.
I used to be able to make a joke about it, but I can't anymore.
Oh,
because of reasons.
The reason, okay.
But the actual reason why it's red is, number one, it used to be my gamer tag. on
I see.
PlayStation.
Mm.
Number 2, my favorite color.
Okay.
Number 3, the alliteration.
Wow.
Number 4, it's an exciting color.
No one leaves their
Good
profession
branding
because
decision.
Yeah, red is for blood.
Red for blood.
Sacrifice the llama.
Aside from children, no one thinks YouTube is easier than a regular job. No one who's actually done it. No one who's actually made videos.
Nobody's actually jumped into it will say that it's.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's possible that it could be easier than their previous possession.
It's not.
No, hold on. Depending on what they're doing, but it's not easy. Period.
Name something that you can make a legitimate argument that is I mean, this sounds pretentious. Okay, what is YouTube actually easier compared to what? Compared to what? Being a YouTuber is easier compared to what? Compared to what?
Someone just asked in chat, what's the meaning behind Audrey Ember? I'm a pyromaniac.
Wow,
you got me.
You mumbled so bad. I don't even think that was English. Okay, for
someone asked me this yesterday, and I was just sitting there like, I don't know how to explain this anymore.
Hold on. Victoria in the chat just asked, what is the meaning behind Audrey Ember? And Audrey replied,
I'm a pyromaniac.
There you go.
There's your answer.
All right, so the question is, why would someone leave their profession to do something harder? Let me ask you something. Why would,
because of the misconception that it's easier?
No, it's not a misconception. Let me ask you something. What, all right, here's something. Would you leave behind being the manager of a retail store to be a video editor at Lucasfilm? And which one do you think is harder? Do you think it's harder to manage a retail store than to be an editor at Lucasfilm? It's harder to be an editor at Lucasfilm, and yet there's plenty of people who would say, oh, if I have the choice between choosing those two things, I still choose working at Lucasfilm.
What do you find?
Harder.
What do you define as harder?
It's literally harder in the sense
of what do you mean literally? What does that mean? It's
literally harder in many ways. Let's look at objectively. Objectively, if you work for Lucasfilm, you're probably not working a consistent schedule in the way that you do if you're a manager of a store. I've been a manager of a store. If you're a manager of a store, the mall closes at a certain time. You know what I'm saying? If you work for Lucasfilm, sometimes stuff's got to get done when it's gonna get done, and you're gonna be doing a 14-hour day. That's how it is. The pressure of working at a retail chain did not compare to knowing that you have part of the Star Wars franchise resting on your shoulders. So there's the matter of the stress of the stakes that you're playing for. Then there's the material challenges in terms of the qualifications and the hoops you'd have to jump through to be good enough to work at Lucasfilm, or just not even whether it's Lucasfilm, just to be a competent video editor is leagues and worlds harder of specialization, training, and understanding software and hardware and techniques and technology and terminology versus a handbook that anybody who works in retail can just memorize and just operate or just be taught on the job. There's no...
See, because I would
say...
Which
is why there are fewer of one thing than the other.
I would say, for me personally, having a job drilling oil would be more difficult than doing YouTube.
Would it? Because I know somebody who would. I have somebody in our community that has done that job and would tell you differently.
All right. Are they male?
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's why I said me personally.
I also know someone who is a female entrepreneur that deals in heavy machinery and sewer lines and all kinds of craziness as a contractor, and is a woman, and not just and she is down there with her employees in the thick of it, and she will tell you that from her perspective that being a content creator is more challenging and more...
But why? I would be interested in knowing why she would feel that way.
It was explained to me. This is how it was explained to me. If you're going to do that job, there's a very limited, it's specialized, but it's limited in its scope of specialization. And then once you learn something, there's little need to continue to adapt. The machinery does not change. The rules of using the machinery does not change. The regulations rarely change, and it's very slow. And the work is usually very linear. It's linear, okay? By comparison, creative work is not linear. It constantly forces adaptation. You cannot be narrow in the scope of the application of that if you want to continue to be successful. If you do something that is even hard labor or construction or machining, the thing is, it doesn't change that radically, even over the course of a decade. Meanwhile, social media's rules, regulations, framework, algorithms, culture changes in real time and drastically. Therefore, the level of required continued adaptability, the level and scope of skills you have to constantly renew or pile on to stay relevant and stay competitive, keep compiling, okay? It keeps compounding. And then also, there's a linear path of input to output results in terms of that manual physical work, because it's also dictated by reality in a very structured way that's not that much subject to change and doesn't have that many variables to account for. Digital and social media has an infinite number of variables and permutations largely beyond your control. That is the difference. That is the difference that was explained to me.
I think I understand. Devious Monkey in the chat framed it. Harder is a relative term. He framed it with the example of people doing brutally hard physical jobs, but it's rewarding to them. So I think that kind of clicked more in my brain, whereas the actual physical side of it is challenging, but it can be rewarding, so that makes it easier than something like YouTube that might not be rewarding even with all of your effort.
You know, like, I'll give you a primary example. If you decided, if you were successful in real estate 5 years ago and you retired and you got back in the game, you probably have almost no problem getting back in the game today and being successful, in terms of you wouldn't need to learn that much differently than when you last practiced real estate. Okay? If you retired from doing law, and then you decide to get back into law today and you just requalify, take the bar exam again, the bar exam is not going to be radically different than the last time you did it. And you're going to be probably good at practicing law. If you leave YouTube for like a year, you can come back and it's completely different. You leave social media for a year, you come back, not to mention, nobody cares about you and your reputation is irrelevant at that point and everything like that. You leave YouTube and you take a break for 2 or 3 months and you're fighting an uphill battle off of that, and so on and so forth. So you see there's like, I'm again, this sounds, like I said, I know that this sounds pretentious. I know that sounds arrogant. I know that, but I want you to just remember that there are literally more people who became millionaires in the last 3 years. Hell, I think actually, no, I just realized something. Actually, no, I take that back. More people became newly minted millionaires last year than have ever gotten a gold play button in YouTube in the history of the entire platform. More people in the last year have achieved millionaire status for the first time in their life, or even for the first time it's been done in their family, than in the 15 years YouTube have exist have been able to garner an audience of 1 million subscribers.
That's kind of scary.
There are
cool.
there are by many magnitudes, more millionaires that have been made in the last 15 years of YouTube existing than have gotten silver play buttons, even 100,000 subscribers in YouTube. Those are numbers.
I didn't say it. I almost.
I was waiting for it.
Like,
I didn't say.
I'm saying that there's empirical statistical data that the failure rate of being a YouTube content creator and being successful in doing it full time is a harder failure rate than making full time. Hell, do you realize it's actually logistically it's logistically unlikely to even make a living wage off of YouTube by a magnitude of literally 99% of all content creators would not be making a living wage, and that's not even accounting for the deficit loss of sunk time, the sunk time cost. That's not even accounting for that. That's how absurd the failure rate is.
Yeah.
90% of content creators don't even get 10,000 subscribers. There are...
But how many of those people are like actually trying seriously? Does that make the ratio any better?
Not really.
Hmm.
Because you could say that about anything, by the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Our ratio of millionaires per capita. Okay, let's put it like this. Philly D actually brought this up. Okay, so our ratio of millionaires per capita. There's like, believe it or not, it's like we have 8.8%. Like, so we have 8.8%. So like of the population of the United States of America, 8.8% are millionaires. So it's almost like a 1 out of 12, like 1 out of 11 actually is probably more accurate. Like 1 out of 12, actually, yeah, like 1 out of 12. 1 out of 12, if you wanted to be reasonable, you could say 1 out of 13, right? That's not like the worst crapshoot in the world, to be honest with you. So like 1 out of 13, and that's in the United States of America, right? There are 100 million YouTubers on the platform. If you want to make an argument for being, and that's globally, but if you want to be conservative, if you want to be ridiculously conservative and use like social blade numbers, fine, 60 million YouTubers on the platform. Number of people with a diamond play button, meaning 10 million subscribers or more. I believe it was 1,800, with a lot of those being big brands like WWE and so on and so forth. You got a couple of Vivo stars. You got like mainstream celebrities in that number. Then you got YouTubers like Mr. Beast and Dream, but a lot of those people are just duplicates. Mr. Beast has 2 diamond play buttons. Okay. Gold play buttons. Number of people with gold play buttons in YouTube, I think now is something like the number of people who have gold play buttons in YouTube is now, I think it's something like 9,000. It's something like 9 or 10,000 people have gold play buttons, something like that. It used to be smaller. It used to be almost the same
like
number
a
of people.
lot.
It's not. It's not. But here's the thing. It's worse than you think, because how many of those are brands? How many of those are brands? How many of those are mainstream celebrities like Ariana Grande? You see what I'm saying? So then you go to silver play button YouTubers, there's only 300,000. There's only 300,000 silver play button YouTubers. You know how many silver play buttons Adobe has? It has 3 of them. You know how many silver play buttons Microsoft has? It has like 4 of them. Like, so again, a lot of it's going to be brands. A lot of it's going to be
It'd
brands.
be interesting to see how many are actually creators out of those.
And then also
members.
a lot of it is duplicate creators, because again, Mr. Beast has 8 or 9 silver play buttons. Jack Sucks at Life has like 8. Philly D has 5. H3 has 3 gold play buttons and 5 silver. You know, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, if you really did break it down to homegrown human beings that without duplication, KDX says, I think the U.S. has 8% of the world's millionaires, not 8% of the U.S. is like, you'd be shocked how many millionaires there are in America. For example, if you literally actually, I think I Googled it. The U.S. has 340 million people, and it has 30 million millionaires or something like that, or 30, or is it 24? It's something like that, which is really close. I think that is about 8% or something of that nature, or pretty close to it. But the United States also has 36 million small business owners. Not every small business owner is a millionaire, but you could see my point, right? There's Like if I literally Google number of, or did you already do it, Romina?
I was looking.
Number of millionaires in the US.
I think I might have found it. Let's see statistics. The total number of millionaires in the US is 20.27 million.
20.27 million, and that was for 2020.
Yeah. Yes, I believe so. The United States added 2.2 new millionaires from 2019 to 2020. So in a year,
we did 2 million new millionaires.
Yeah, we've added 2.2 new millionaires to the total count of millionaires in the world.
So there are literally more people in a year by a factor of 10 in the last year to become millionaires than in the entirety of YouTube's existence than to get silver play buttons. No, lots of those millionaires did not inherit wealth. There were not that many people with wealth to pass on. It's literally the minority of the minority. And then, they didn't. Inherit.
The people who've inherited wealth are a minority.
It is the biggest perpetuated myth in the world that wealth is mostly inherited. It is the biggest perpetuated myth in the world that wealth is mostly inherited.
Absolutely.
Is the biggest lie. It is like a legitimate scam to make people believe that. By the way, being a millionaire is one thing, but making $1 million, like on a long enough timeline, most people who work consecutively for a certain number of years do. Yeah.
Everyone should be possible. It should be possible for everyone to do.
Well, I mean, the most likely way, and the reason most of the people who become millionaires, I think the median age is 55.
I've done the math. I've done the math.
Yeah, the median age. The median age of most millionaires in America is about.
Think it means.
The median age of most millionaires in America is about 57 years old, I think it was. And because the thing is, Romina, it's not the most complicated mathematical formula.
Yeah.
I know people will, again, resent me saying this and like, privilege.
Is that what they sound like?
I don't know. But here's the thing. If you conservatively believe that the S&P 500 was only going to do 8%, which would be ridiculous since for the last 2 decades it's done more than that. And the last decade it's done like over 14%. But if you went conservatively to 8% and then you accounted for 35 years of consecutive work and all someone did was max their Roth IRA and no stock ever outperformed, or they did no individual stock investing, this is not financial advice, then literally 35 years of consecutive work starting with $1, only maxing your Roth IRA, $500 a month, $6,000 a year, compound interest on those contributions with the majority of it basically being profit would result in $1.1 million after 35 years of consecutive work of only maxing out your Roth IRA with $500 a month. $500 a month extra to invest is literally making an extra $20 a day. $20 a day, and you would make $600 per month extra to invest. You'd still have $100 over after maxing
so I gotta
your Roth
make
IRA.
$20 a day.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
That's what
Romina.
you're telling me.
That assumes someone only ever maxes out their Roth IRA. That assumes they never do a 401k plan, put more money into that. That also presumes that they never had employee matching, which literally would double their money, which if they ended up making the maximum.
And this is just for basic. This is just basic people, like the normies who don't have their own business.
Exactly. That's literally you just do regular normie stuff and you would do that. And the thing is, people do the FIRE movement. The reason that more people are becoming millionaires is because they're embracing the FIRE movement. That requires tremendous discipline, intentionality, frugality, and a lot of really uncomfortable things. And usually they have to specialize in some things. And that's the other thing with YouTube. YouTube is difficult because it requires multiple facets. You have to both specialize and diversify and be wildly disciplined, and you have to understand culture. When you are successful doing a variable amount of those things that seem out of your control, but you're exerting a lot of control over your choices, it looks on the surface level to a layman like you got lucky, when the reality is that you did something that was absurd, and just because it didn't work out for most people does not mean that you are lucky. You can argue that you are fortunate, but you are not lucky. It was something that you did that is a deviation from what normal people choose to do.
So Kyle asked, I think maybe he was being a little bit sarcastic to what he was saying about inheritance, but he also said, can you inherit a play button? And I just want to bring up Andy's comment because I thought it was funny. It made me laugh. So Andy responds,
You can inherit an audience.
Yep, it can be put into a will. Same with the YouTube
Can
channel.
It can be put into the conditions of winning a civil suit too, as well. Keemstar loves when he wins legal battles to collect people's play buttons, and actually, I applaud.
Hold up,
that
I think a really good example of this is Grace Helbig with My Damn Channel.
Yeah, you can inherit, that was
because through My Damn Channel she was doing Daily Grace.
Yep.
And Daily
Which
Grace
became the Daily You.
Precisely. So, but that was inherited, and presumably the play button. I mean, if they were being courteous, they probably gave her the play button.
I'm
but
thinking of SourceFed became now this,
right,
and inherited, and now they have their own audience too, because eventually people like the SourceFed audience moved on, and they kept a small portion of that, then went over to the new venture, the Valley Folk. So like you can inherit an audience, you can inherit theoretically a play button if you inherit the business that owned the channel. And well, you're not really inheriting it, it's an acquisition, and it's an asset, in theory at least.
Yeah.
But
I agree with Kyle that I wouldn't call YouTube a more even playing field as much as I would say, because an even playing field is a misquoted idea, and it's because what people are trying to say when they say that is, I think they're trying to imply that something is meritocratic, but an even playing field actually would not necessarily be meritocratic, or it would not suggest that we all have the same opportunity if you even the playing field. If you even the playing field, but I'm the only one with knowledge of the terrain, or rather, I'm the only one with pre-established knowledge of the terrain, giving all of you an even playing field does not mean that we all walked into this with the same competitive advantage or the same opportunity, because my foreknowledge is not something that was available to the rest of you. And even like, that's
can you imagine? All right, let me I'm going to backtrack here for a second. Talking about the Daily You again. So if you actually look at their performance, they inherited a channel which had a couple million subscribers, I think, at the time. But anyway, a very large audience, right?
Oh, another example is Equals 3.
They eventually changed, right? Equals 3. I forgot about that. They eventually changed they changed the host a couple times, and they created different kinds of content. And the channel just completely died. They had the audience, but the audience wasn't there for Daily You. They were there for Grace. And the whole thing kind of just fell. So can you imagine?
Let's actually, you know what? Do you mind if I literally just show them what we're talking about?
You gonna pull it up?
There's nothing. This is for the live audience. So if you're on the audio, we'll just kind of describe what's happening. So we're looking at the Daily You, right? And I'm looking at its videos tab in YouTube, and the Daily You is a 1.8 million subscribed channel. It's an OG channel, and it used to have a host, Grace Helbig, who went on to be a very, very successful solo YouTuber in her own right. And they've tried a lot of things. They tried a live action format with an actual.
If you go back far enough,
host.
You'll see me.
Yeah, well, with an actual host.
Yeah, I was in a couple of their videos.
That's amazing, by the way, like that you've been around so long in the YouTube community. But here's something interesting.
Oh, look, that's me.
Yep, there you go. Would you rather bonus challenge? And then let's get quizzical with Romina. But like they tried a lot of different things, and we're going back like 6 years now and stuff like that. This is not even the Grace
Oh
Hell
my God,
Big
it's
Days
been
yet.
that long.
It's not, yeah. Like when was the Grace Hell Big Days? I think.
Yeah, about 8. Is that? It's no 6.
All right, so
6. We got some.
there
We
we
got
go.
some. No, so here's the thing. So when they started to, it's actually further back because they were doing when Grace left. Okay, this is Grace here.
I think she was still doing some stuff for their channel while she was
Yeah, they were
transitioning to her own.
still, and they were actually recycling older content so that the Grace fans would stick around and keep
And that-
watching. And
That didn't work.
they would repost old Grace videos and just like title them like as if they were new, but they were old.
Yeah. Which
So
I
it was
think is
very like
technically against terms of service, but
it was very like it definitely took advantage of the audience, which I think
ultimately led to their
they
downfall.
caught exactly. Yeah, they caught on and were not
The
about
only
that.
thing they were afraid of was to lose their power, which of course they did.
I want to watch the Romina video.
Yeah. But here's the thing: we'll get they'll copyright claim us for sure. But the assuming anyone still works there, because they haven't posted in over a year. But this is a channel with 1.8 million subscribers, and again, I'm not the view to subscriber ratio guy, and I'm not like downing them for their views or anything like that. But I'm pointing out that they became a content farm because they were a company. They became a content farm. They try to take advantage of and not be truly loyal to an audience. They didn't have the courage to build an audience from scratch. They thought that they could just walk in to a pre-existing audience and treat it like any other asset or any other brand acquisition. And it failed spectacularly because, again, they alienated the existing audience, and it got to a point to where you have this channel with over 1 million subscribers that cannot break 10,000 views. Almost 2 million subscribers that cannot break 10,000 views. And it tried for years and years and years and years, and it did not work. And largely, the only reason that they got any views at all after a while was repurposing old Grace Helbig content and repackaging it as if it was new, but not even because I don't think they were tricking her fans as much as their people who are probably just looking for the past of where Grace Helbig like came from or looking for old content, and I think they got search views. I don't think there's anybody who was loyal to this channel. And if I literally probably look up the social blade for this channel, it's probably going to be a complete disaster. But I'm making the point that there's also, by the way, it is easier to go into any career or industry where there has been a pre-established like system and way of doing things that can be clearly understood versus going into the wild, wild west, the new frontier, going into something that hasn't existed for even 2 decades, for there to be a true rule book or playbook, which is why it's all new and the foundation can be ripped out from under you. There's any career you can go into and you could know what being in that career for 10, 15, 20 years is supposed to look like. You cannot do that as a content creator. There's not been an established roadmap for that, and you're living in a world where the technology around that moves so rapidly and so ridiculously that the standards are not codified because there's no point. There's no point in codifying a standard for it to change 18 months later. That's like right now, as we speak right now, there's regulations being written for this that, again, there's almost no industry in which the regulations are changing as dramatically as in technology and social media. Look into something called the Safe Tech Act to Reform Section 230, and you'll see that literally our free speech on the internet is up for grabs right now and everything like that. Thanks so much, Senator Klobuchar. Thank you so much, Senator Warner. Thank you so much, Senator Hirano. Thank you so much for literally putting our free speech on the internet on the line and then having the audacity to call it the Safe Tech Act. I'm going to like I don't
I
know. I'm
just-
tempted to
Alright,
go figure out
I just
having
want
a.
to hold on. Wait a second. I want to give a disclaimer here that the opinion of one of our hosts is not the opinion of all of our hosts. I'm not saying that I disagree with Roberto. Just as a disclaimer, we are 3 separate people with separate.
What? I thought we were all the
opinions.
same person.
I mean, sometimes we are, but for the audience,
Trio.
it's important
no.
for them to know.
It's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave this one with saying that I might go and I might have a word with our legislators, because if they invite me, I will go, and I will not be polite about it.
We are NARP. We are many.
I will not be polite about it. If I have to talk to people who want to legislate social media that don't make content and have not sat down and had 3-hour conversations with content creators about how they make their livelihood and what their concerns are that want to regulate it, they would not do this kind of thing, and they refuse to do this kind of thing when it comes to people like coal miners, when it becomes anything that has an established history, and when it's that. They won't do that. They won't dare. But then when it comes to the internet and the decentralized voices across the internet that won't necessarily gather together in a show of resistance to that sort of thing, and largely when they believe that it's young people and things of that nature, they are very brazen in how they do things. The COPPA is a good example of this. COPPA, which did nothing to protect children on the internet, because if it did such a great job of protecting the internet on the internet, why are they having to introduce this whole Safe Tech Act if they did such a great job with the Child's Online Privacy and Protection Act? If you did accomplish so much, it's like, if you accomplished so much with that.
Oh, you're going off on a tangent, man.
I really just wish that we could get to a point where people try to infringe on us less. That'd be nice.
Victoria wants to know, will you clip your highlights for IG or no? I've been following NARP. And that's the dream, Victoria. If you'd like to clip up the highlights for us, you're more than welcome to.
Make all your friends subscribe so we can get monetized, and then we could start a Patreon.
Outsource that. Yeah,
Make
because
some
the main
stickers.
problem is just bandwidth.
To be real, it's not even cost. It's just more.
It's like
time.
we do this probably 80% for fun. And then 20% is like, we'd like to see it grow because we do have opinions. And of course, in good fashion, we want everybody to know about them. And so I think that eventually we would like to have little highlights. I definitely know that there's certain moments in past episodes that I think would be amazing as highlights. And I think that it's just a matter of time. And as we grow more, that maybe hopefully we can get some extra help or something to make that happen. But it's not really our focus, I guess.
You could get an unpaid intern.
Maybe.
So what? So we can get canceled?
Exploit.
So we can
Exploit the youth.
So we can exploit
Let's
the youth and
exploit
everything
the
like
youth,
that, while
guys.
simultaneously giving them an education that they couldn't afford if they tried.
Oof, Roberto, are you saying? All right, well, that's a whole other topic.
Have you guys seen the Bo Burnham special?
Oh yes, I have twice.
The unpaid intern song is stuck. It's stuck. In my head. It has been stuck in my head.
I wish that everybody
the
that
white
wants
woman's
to,
Instagram is the one that's in my head.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Internet is stuck in my head.
Welcome
We should
to
talk
the
about the
Internet is
special. I feel
probably-
like there's a lot of references to like social media and YouTube and
Oof, that means
Stuff.
Roberto's got to sit down and watch. But Roberto, did you ever?
wait, he said it. Watched it.
Did
I
you
watched.
watch it?
I didn't finish it.
Oh.
It's one of those things that where if I know I'm going to get invested in something, I need a block of uninterrupted time.
Oh, you
which
gotta,
is very-
you gotta just watch like the whole thing. Because the first time I watched it, I was working at the same time, and I kept having to like stop, like pause it, and to make sure that I would actually focus because like a lot of stuff was happening on screen.
Yeah.
And then the second time, I made sure that I was just focused. I really wanted to
Yeah.
watch it again as soon as I
Focused
was
mind.
done watching it. So
focused, man.
But anyway, before we start wrapping up, I do actually want to bring another little fact. The 2.2 million that we added in the United States actually put the US in the very top of the list of countries with the most millionaires. So
who's second place?
China.
That makes sense. I mean, it makes sense that might be them, but
yep, it's China.
Is it?
I guarantee it's China, and then it's after that. I believe it's India.
Well, I'll have to see. But you can hear it now?
Mm-hmm.
Man, it's been popping off like this whole time. 3 hours, man. 3 hours of this. I don't know what's going on.
Most millionaires are not like, we didn't have 2 million people wake up to an inheritance last year. That's not what happened.
I want to be on that list. Do you know what? I'm just gonna buy a bunch of those, bunch of the puzzles, the $1 million puzzle.
Oh my!
I'm gonna freaking do like the. I'm gonna do
gambling puzzle.
I did the puzzle last week.
Romina, we're already degenerate gamblers, or have you forgotten? So
I did the puzzle last week, Roberto. I got 25 cents. In case anybody's wondering. Yeah, I'm a winner because everybody's a winner. Everybody's a winner, Audrey. If you buy the puzzle, you're a winner instantly.
Romina, all we need is like some all we need is these all we need is like Wall Street bets to come through, and we're rich.
I know what you're saying.
All we need
and
is
I'm
Wall
ready.
Street bets.
I'm holding down the fort. I'm ready.
You're ready?
I'm literally
we got this,
ready.
Right?
You know how many $1 million puzzles I will buy?
No, me and Romina have a plan to like.
Oh no, we have a plan. Yeah, we
have a plan to get. We won't tell you unless it happens, but we have a plan to get rich for no reason. Like we have a true plan to become undeservingly rich. Like we're not joking. Like we literally went in on it for the joke, and and the thing is, if we get rich doing this, we will declare that it was. We won't declare that it was dumb luck.
I will 100% schedule interviews. I will write a book. I'll write a book.
But it's like, it will be that as like, I got rich for no reason. I will title a book, I got rich for no reason. And then I'll explain that why I got rich for no reason. But it's like, but here's the thing. It would still not be luck because we made an intentional choice that would put us in a position to be the beneficiaries of stupidity.
Right.
We will disproportionately, if we get rich, like, oh, I got a sequel. I got rich because people are stupid.
Oh my goodness.
Like, but no, it would literally be the reason if this plan that we have ever should come to fruition in the next 3 to 5 years, it will be for no other reason.
Right. And if you wanted to turn that into a trilogy, you could say, I got rich because people are still stupid.
Wow. I can see
Audrey, you can write the prologue.
Oh yeah.
Audrey writing the forward.
Yeah.
But
dang, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all she said. Actually, it would be fitting for the book, Audrey.
It would.
But I would say, I will say this though. I will say this. If this goes through, I'm happy.
Beneficiaries of Stupidity sounds like a rock band from the 60s.
No, if you guys do this,
I would say 70s, really. More than 60s.
Well, I mean, we'll tell you in the chat. We'll tell you what we're doing, and you probably still get in on this, but like, but no one should. But it's literally, just understand it. What we're doing in this. We'll tell you guys one day.
What we are doing is 100% legal. I just want to say
it's 100% legal, but it's also.
I feel like if you have to clarify, that's a bad sign.
Yeah, it's legal, and it's also
not,
degenerate
and it's
gambling.
not a scheme. It's not a multi-level marketing.
And we are not promoting that anybody else do it. We are not promoting that anyone else do it, nor are we using our influence to make this work in any way in our favor. We're actually doing the opposite of that. We're actually discouraging people from doing what we're planning. Like that's like we're actually literally you're supposed to be confused. That's exactly it. Like I'll just say it like this. We made a bet on a cryptocurrency of some kind And we are not telling anyone what it is, and we're not promoting it, and we are not like, no, I went on the Drip the other day to actually talk about like how people are scamming their fans. We're doing the opposite. We're saying, do not do any of the thing we're doing, and we're to make sure you don't do it. We're not going to tell you the specifics of how we're investing in crypto. We're not going to tell you how we're investing in crypto because we literally don't want you doing what we're doing and using us for that financial advice. If I was going to, I'm not going to give you financial advice, but I would tell you, be boring and vanilla as hell and max out your IRA and work consecutively for years just investing in boring ass index funds. That would be Roberto's advice if he were to give any.
Yeah. And Romina's advice would be, let's start wrapping up the podcast.
I'm ready to wrap.
Nice.
Let's go.
Do you have an outro?
I'll make one up.
Thank you for listening to the No Assembly Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please remember that no advice given here should be counted as financial advice, nor were any of the comments made in jest, as a joke, by our trio of hosts, mostly me, should be considered in any way an indictment on the incompetence of the federal government in any way, shape, or form. These things are merely for entertainment purposes only. This has been your trio of hosts signing off, starting with Romina with the good hair, Audrey, dang it all, Ember, and of course, your dark Lord of the interwebs, here to regale you with adventures and contrarian opinions, mostly for his own amusement, Roberto Blake. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week where we react, in theory, assuming I make the time to watch it, to Bo Burnham's adventures in Netflix. Stay tuned. We will catch you next week. Nop.